Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to remind you each and every day, it expands our base. What a contrast. Yesterday, Jimmy Carter was laid to rest. The former president of the United States, the 39th president of the United States, received tributes at the funeral that were absolutely marvelous. Now, I must tell you, many of us can be critical of Jimmy Carter on many levels, but the fact that he was an honest, decent human being is what stood out. Whether it was the tribute by Gerald Ford's son, Stephen, which was absolutely, beautiful, or Ted Mondale reflecting on his father, Walter Mondale's experience as Jimmy Carter's vice president. And you had every former president of the United States and all the former vice presidents of the United States sitting together, essentially to celebrate America. It was a very moving moment. Putting partisanship aside, and I believe in a case like that you have to, we look for these kinds of shining moments when we can celebrate the spirit that is America. With all our faults, with all of our difficulties, with all of the problems we may have, America came together yesterday to celebrate a former president, but also to celebrate the American system. I was intrigued by the fact that Donald Trump sat next to Barack Obama, and they seemed to chat amicably. I was very impressed by the fact that for the first time in 4 years, Donald Trump and Mike Pence shook hands. I'm not sure it was one of great joy in terms of either one of them. They've been so critical of each other. But nonetheless, it showed a coming together of America. And that's the spirit, isn't it? Very reminiscent of the days when the two great American presidents who were political rivals, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, reconciled. That was alluded to during the course of the discussion yesterday when you saw Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter being reunited as people who had been political opponents and who really fought each other, all of a sudden coming together and paying tribute at a funeral. Interestingly enough, do you remember the last words of Jefferson and Adams when they spoke about each other? And of course, the most important comment was by Adams. Jefferson still lives. Of course, Jefferson had died. They just didn't know it. But they both died on July 4th, 1826. July 4th meant something. And my dear friends, what I witnessed yesterday was really quite something. A tribute to a great country. And then I turned on the television this morning and, I saw a completely different approach to the presidency. Donald Trump is being sentenced. That's right, a convicted felon, and he's being sentenced. Though he's not going to jail, and indeed, he is not having to pay a fine. But Donald Trump, nonetheless, is now a convicted felon who has been sentenced. What a contrast. What a difference between the spirits of these two events taking place within 24 hours of each other. It is a tribute to the American system, but we are certainly not over all the trauma caused by Donald Trump, and indeed, the trauma continues and continues to grow. One of the things we observed yesterday was a bipartisan spirit. Do we see that bipartisan spirit today? I ask the question sincerely because I am hearing Republicans in the Congress applauding the idea of taking back the Panama Canal, applauding the idea that Greenland should be seized by the United States. I am hearing statements by Donald Trump being affirmed by Republicans in Congress that, frankly, make no sense. Seizing Canada? I mean, give me a break. There is something about the old way we did things, that is, the respectful way that we did things, in contrast to where we are today. where there seems to be little respect by the Trump administration for tradition and law and, yes, order within our democratic system. I point this out today in the midst of all of the other things we could talk about, because that's what moved me yesterday. That's what caused me to say, well, the America of yesterday and the America of today, it was one heck of a contrast. I want to wrap up this podcast by pointing out that the fires in Los Angeles have also revealed a partisan schism. I listened to Fox with great care yesterday, and basically their theme was to attack the Democrats, to attack the liberals, to attack Gavin Newsom. It was, to me, a shocking display. In the midst of a great crisis, in the midst of a human tragedy of such incredible dimension, that Republicans and the talking heads at Fox would make a political issue out of an American catastrophe. I point this out again to demonstrate something that to me is quite remarkable. Have we become so partisan, so fixed in our positions, that we cannot acknowledge the America that needs help, direction, support? What about our fellow Americans who at this moment in Southern California are facing such massive tragedy? Don't you think the Fox talking heads could have been, could have been more sensitive to the fact that nobody could avoid the kind of fire that happened? It wasn't a Democratic liberal approach, nor was it a conservative Republican approach. It was a simple tragedy. And that, my friends, is what I'm witnessing in the courtroom with Donald Trump. Interestingly enough, the partisan nature of where we are seems to have blinded us to where we ought to be. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. You can interact with me. All you have to do is go to LinkedIn, my Facebook page. You can communicate with me by email, and many of you do, and I appreciate the observations. And finally, let me say a big thank you to Gogo Zoger, who makes sure that this podcast is up and running every single day. Well, the weekend is coming. There's going to be a lot of news made, and frankly, I can't wait to be back here on Monday with you. See you then.